here before sort of the essence of it, which is really about women helping women, and that's what we want to ensure that you get out of today. That you're with people within your profession, some very experienced, some new, some in positions of real leadership, long time experience, and some at intern level and just getting to know things. So we're very keen to have this be a very interactive session. We believe people come to these conferences to network, and sometimes we don't always network because we go and we sit at a table and we get talked at. So we're very deliberate in how we put this conference together, and it is very interactive. You may feel a little bit out of your comfort zone at times, and no apologies for that. We want you to engage, we want you to find out new things. Often, and we were talking about this last night, often people will take things away from the conference that we didn't even anticipate or expect, and it's just the little things that happen. It's the off-the-cuff comment about how one of the women in leadership, chief procurement officer, may have got to where she got to. Looking after 2 kids at home, looking after aging parents as well, in a global role. And there are so many demands on women within this function. But it's a wonderful function to progress in, and it's actually the skill set within it really lends itself to female interpersonal skills. So hopefully you'll start to see a little bit of that in the conference. The outline, hopefully everybody got one of these, kind of gives you a bit of the program. We'll kick off with the wonderful Carrie Erickson, and Nadia will make introductions in a moment. Carrie's come all the way over from California today to be with us, so very grateful for that. We'll then go into a very interactive session on generational diversity, and for the women who have come here year on year, there's been a real demand for this, so I can tell you the team has put together, and it has been a really wonderful team effort, and they're all volunteers to put this together, and it'll be every generation will be represented in that session. Then we'll have lunch, and we'll go through the Diamond Award presentation, and then we'll come back in. So lunch will be over in the Delights room where we work for breakfast, and then we'll come back here for the CPO panel discussion. And then after that, we're going to go through round tables, and we're just going to see how the logistics work out. We may well have the round tables in the Delights room because there's just more space, and we have some wonderful presenters and just women who are just keen to support and share information in those sessions. So I'd like to introduce Thalia Adams-Wingarten. If you'd like to come up. Thalia was the president of ISM
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cheryl. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the 5th annual ISM New Jersey Women in Leadership Conference. Today we are very fortunate. Not only are we going to share the wisdom of many women who have excelled in their careers, but not only that, but they've helped other people along the way. Not only that, I'm sure you noticed already at breakfast and maybe yesterday, they're very down to earth. You would never have known that they were a senior vice president from the way they act. No, they make everybody feel important. And I think that you should take advantage of that today and speak to everyone that you can as much as you can, because everyone has something really valuable to share today. Our Women in Leadership Committee Chair, Cheryl Young, has put together a wonderful program, and you'll benefit not only from an educational standpoint, but also from all the contacts and friends you'll meet today. I'm sure you have already. This program would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, so I'd like to take a moment to thank our gold sponsor, Prince-elect, our silver our silver and reception sponsor, J.B. Kelly Group. A very lovely reception last night. It was absolutely delightful. Our bronze sponsors, Metro Packaging and Imaging, Meetings and Incentives Worldwide, and ThomasNet. Our product sponsors are Johnson & Johnson Consumer Products, Pepsi, and Mars Chocolate. I'm sure you noticed some of And I must point out, Mars has been sponsoring this event for the past 5 years. We're very grateful to Mars. Our additional sponsors are Diversified Officer, New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners, A.T. Kearney, and New York, New Jersey Minority Supplier Development Council. Please stop by and visit all of them during the breaks. I think most of them have tables in here today. I also wanted to take a moment to thank our student volunteers. We're very grateful for their help. Rudy Singh, Sherry Yu, and Andrea Petrojak. And before I get into a few little housekeeping things, as a reminder, if you haven't done so already, you can get a parking pass at the front desk. And of course, put your cell in the quiet mode. Okay, where we're located, I think Carol already went through that. I think we're in here for most of the events, and then we'll be eating lunch back in the Delancey room. I think we're here the rest of the day. And also, don't forget your certificate, your TA certificate, which is in your bag. Keep a hold of that for recertification. And also, don't forget to fill out the survey. We really need that to help us with the planning for next year. And now, without further delay, I'm pleased to introduce, all the way from California, Carrie Erickson, Vice President of A.T. Kearney. Carrie.
Thank you. Thanks. I am really super pleased to be here today. It's a great venue, a great event. I've heard a lot about it from Cheryl. So I've got some watchers over here on the sun. So if it gets disturbing, like you look right in the middle of the sun there. I'm mostly going to be on this side of the screen. So if it's bad, just raise your hand and we can. I think someone's coming in to help fix it. Did you say someone's coming in? She's probably on it now. I thought I heard them, so we'll give it a minute. I'm super pleased to be here. Do I need to wear a mic? Can you hear me in the back? Have to shout. Do you want a mic?
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, good. So I'm going to get started and slow me down if you can't hear me. So again, really pleased to be here. Big data is such an emerging topic. It's a new topic that I still have a lot of notes. If you came here to ask me, or if you invited me to talk about careers in supply management, careers in supply chain, or procurement transformation, or procurement organization design, I could talk for hours, and let's do that over cocktails or something. But big data, I still need notes. So sorry about that, but it should be pretty fun. It should be a good topic tonight, or today. So, and in today's business climate, it's more important than ever that we start to really understand, internalize, and work with the big data that's out there. But before I get started, this is something you probably already are. In fact, Tamara's working with big data, or your firm's working with big data, right?
That's right, yep.
Anybody else working with big data in their organizations today? 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I will not put anybody on the spot on this, but before I begin, does anyone want to give us a definition of big data? And I promise I won't cold call you on this one. Any takers? It's supposed to be my job? Okay. Give it a try.
I don't actually do it, but I've worked with, just recently worked with consultants that were big data.
Can you stand up and turn around so folks can hear?
Okay. We worked very recently at my company. We had a project with consultants where they were considered big data consultants. And they took data from, I think the main thing is from diverse sources, not just a lot of information, but it was from lots of different sources. And they put it all together, crunched it down, so I could really get a true picture of what was going on, in this case, where the spend was.
Right.
Is that good?
I think that's good, and we'll get to some more elaboration about that now. If you didn't get the memo, you guys are not with the color combination. Come on, we planned. Okay, so yeah, that is a great, thank you so much for starting with that. First, my little promo of A.T. Kearney. We are a global consulting organization. We work on big data as well as a lot of other things. It's a little cramped here, so just toss it aside. Over 3,000 consultants worldwide. I brought 2 today with me. Laura Shoemaker in the middle, yay, and Sonali Agarwal right here up front. So if you can't get to me afterwards and have other questions, then I'd be happy to help you answer those. We are part of our practice within A.T. Kearney. We have all sorts of industry practices and service practices. We're in the procurement and analytics practice, which means that's what we specialize in, procurement and analytics. And super fun place to be, so happy to chat with any of you guys about that if you'd like at a later date, but let's get on with the show here. So, analytics has really gone mainstream. Who's seen the Avengers? A few people out there, not as many as I would have hoped. One of the #1 gross-selling movies of all time at $1.5 billion, Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr. And so we've spliced together 2 clips here to give you a sense for how mainstream data is today. So I'm going to be seeing Dr. Banner. I don't know why it does that. I tried to embed my videos in there and I messed something out, but that's okay. So pay close attention to Dr. Banner. He's the Incredible Hulk. And what he's saying about algorithms and clustering. And then we'll cut to the action scene. I do have a bit of a disclaimer, and that is that A, I was lame and couldn't get it embedded. But B, there might be some, a little profanity, so, shield your ears if you're super sensitive. Big girls and boys here.
Doctor, thank you for coming.
Thanks for asking nicely. So, how long am I staying?
Once we get our hands on the Tesseract, you're in with me.
Where are you with that?
We're sweeping every wirelessly accessible camera on the planet. Cell phones, laptops. If it's connected to a satellite, it's eyes and ears for us.
It's still not going to find enough time.
You have to narrow your field. How many spectrometers do you have access to?
How many are there?
Call every lab you know. Tell them to put the spectrometers on the roof and calibrate them for gamma rays. I'll rough out a tracking algorithm, basic cluster recognition. At least we could rule out a few places. You have somewhere for me to work?
Busy.
That was the date part.
So, this all seems horrible.
I've seen worse.
Sorry.
No, we could use a little worse.
Stuck. We got him. Banner, just like you said, but tell him to suit up. I'm bringing the party to you.
I don't see how that's a party.
Dr. Banner. Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
Okay. Fun stuff, huh? The superheroes are now the nerds. I mean, who's seen The Big Bang Theory, right? It's all about the analytics, and these are our superheroes going forward. So we better get on it, right? We can't fall behind. We want to be superheroes. I want to be a procurement rock star superhero. So I got to know something about big data. So the Harvard Business Review identified data scientists as being the top sexiest career for the 21st century. I mean, come on, this is Harvard. It's data scientists. It's sexy. And let's be clear, it's not necessarily about the data that's critical so much, although we need that, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it is and how to get it. But the insights that we can draw from the data is what's really important. So that's what these data scientists are able to get. And I think a data scientist is a complete misnomer, because if any of you have ever met these people, they are data artists. Like these people, the really good people that you find, they might not be able to have that conversation with you, but they can see all this data in their head and how it models and how it comes together, regardless of how complex. For me, they're really, really, truly artists. My story's getting stolen here. Okay, so now my transition was, but don't worry about us, because the Wall Street Journal says that the supply chain professionals are right there with them. So in June, the Wall Street Journal identified the supply chain management as the hot new MBA for the 20th century. The quote is, In the past few years, many companies have experienced growing pains as they've added far-flung sourcing partners and shipped products to a more international market. Reliance on data analytics to find new efficiencies have led companies to see their supply chain as critical to their success and crucial, now I'm all messed up, to see their supply chains as crucial to success or failure. Again, data is at the heart of what we do in the supply chain. Who in this group has a degree in supply chain management or supply management? Great, you guys are the future. The rest of us are just trying to keep up. Okay, so back to analytics in the mainstream. In the 2012 election, the Obama campaign went really deep into data analytics for their success, not only in get the vote out campaigns, but in the important area of fundraising. They had 5 times as many people in their Chicago office in the 2012 election as compared to the 2008 election, focused on data analytics. And in fact, they brought in a chief scientist, or as I would say, chief artist, to run this, to crunch the numbers. I'm sorry. To crunch the numbers to max. If it goes forward again, I'm just going to let it because it keeps messing me up. Okay. So, the chief scientist came from the supermarket retail industry. That's the person that's used to looking at all that SKU data, all that promotion data, and now they were involved in the election. Now, this new mega database they created didn't just tell the campaign sort of who the voters were and where the voters were, but it really was driving to identify the propensity for people to get out and vote, as well as to get out and give. And what it able to do was gave the data to the field offices of who these people were to drive their efficiency in working and reaching out to the voters so that they could be much more effective and quick in terms of their outreach and their fundraising. Some of the demographics they used were like age, sex, neighborhood, as well as past voting records in terms of people who were likely voters. What they said is we could predict people who were going to give online. We could model people who were going to give through the mail. We could model volunteers. And this was from one of the senior advisors to the campaign. In the end, modeling became something way bigger for them in 2012 than in 2008 because it made their time much more efficient. So not only in addition to maximum impact in terms of efficiency, but also in terms of what their outreach said. So who's got any guesses for what, if you're sending an email to somebody soliciting money for a campaign, what do you put in the subject line? Like, what word or words is most successful in getting people to open the email and then donate?
Urgent.
Thank you.
Something personal like best friend, or I've got an uncle that just died in Namibia. Who's got another one?
Need your help.
Nope.
Thank
Please
you.
be a part of.
Nope.
Congratulations.
Nope. 3 little letters. Hey. H-E-Y. Hey. That sounds like spam to me, right? But that's what they determined was the most important subject line for them to have success in that. Okay, so back to the analytics-driven company. Who's heard of Moneyball, the book or the movie? Right? Okay, great. The book was written by Michael Lewis, and he probably played a role in the movie. Now, here's just a little about me. I'm a bit of a Michael Lewis fan, and some might say a stalker. He wrote not only Moneyball, he wrote The Blind Side, so for our sensitive side, which is so weird, like how can you write those 2 books from the same person? He also wrote The Big Short and Liar's Poker, his long career on Wall Street. But anyway, so my daughter just started this new school. She's in 6th grade, and it's a middle school, and it's all girls, and it's all about girl power and science and technology, and it's great. So I'm so excited about it. But anyway, so somebody had told me that his daughter's going to this school, and then I kind of forgot about it. And I was at the new parent orientation, and I'm walking around, drinking my coffee. This guy walks by with Michael Lewis on the thing. I'm like, are you the Michael Lewis? And he's like, yeah, I am. And I was so excited, I couldn't even tell you. And so I said, oh, I've read everything you've written. And he did this whole piece in Vanity Fair last summer about Obama. And I'm like, how did you do that? How did you play basketball with Obama? Like, amazing. And then I thought, oh, now I'm acting like a bit of a stalker, and I should act like a parent. So I started asking him about his kid, which I didn't really care about. But about his kid. And so Dixie is in 6th grade too, and Dixie plays volleyball, and my daughter Sophia is totally playing volleyball. Next year, Cheryl, when I come back, I'll bring my ball. So anyway, so back to Moneyball. The premise of Moneyball is the general manager of the Oakland A's, the guy by the name of Billy Beane. And they were looking to, the lowest budget in baseball. They had the smallest payroll. And so they were looking how to maximize their payroll. And they moved to using evidence-based analytics, sabermetric approach. Anyone know what sabermetric means? Sounds pretty impressive, right? So Wikipedia, the best source. It's the empirical analysis of baseball statistics. So most of us probably don't need to use sabermetric approaches in our lives today. And invented by a guy named Bill James. But anyway, so what's important here is they were taking an old traditional sport and moving it into the 21st century by using data and analytics. And so this clip kind of sums up the that approach that they were taking. Let me make sure I get the right one because I got two. It's not gonna let me. Okay, good. Question.
We're trying to solve a problem here, but not like this. You're not even looking at the problem.
That's the wrong
You're very
one.
aware.
See, I could have picked one of two, and I picked the wrong one.
There is an epidemic failure within the game to understand what is really happening. And this leads people who run Major League Baseball teams to misjudge their players and mismanage their teams. I apologize.
Go on.
Okay. People who run ball clubs, they think in terms of buying players. Your goal shouldn't be to buy players, your goal should be to buy wins. And in order to buy wins, you need to buy runs. You're trying to replace Johnny Damon. The Boston Red Sox see Johnny Damon and they see a star who's worth $7.5 million a year. When I see Johnny Damon, what I see is an imperfect understanding of where runs come from. The guy's got a great glove. He's a decent leadoff hitter. He can steal bases, but is he worth the $7.5 million a year that the Boston Red Sox are paying him? No. Baseball thinking is medieval. They are asking all the wrong questions. And if I say it to anybody, I'm ostracized. I'm a leper, so that's why I'm cagey about this with you. That's why I respect you, Mr. Bean, and if you want full disclosure, I think it's a good thing that you got Damon off your payroll. I think it opens up all kinds of interesting possibilities.
So interesting, huh? The sport of baseball is no longer a sport. Well, it was always business, let's be clear. But the ability to take all that statistical information and really change the outcome of the game. Now, a lot of people will challenge this because when Billy Beane was doing this, the A's were super successful and they got to the playoffs, but ultimately they didn't win the series, and that's what it's really all about. So, there's opportunity to really improve your performance, but there's still some fine tuning to get that win, that brass ring or whatever color that World Series ring is. So why is analytics important? Well, a couple of examples here. Sears, we've all grown up with, is a national retailer, biggest retailer in the world until it started in the 1890s, but biggest retailer in North America until 1989, when it was overtaken by whom? Walmart, right, with their great supply chain, which I won't say was driven by analytics in 1989, but it certainly is today. In 2005, they were bought by Kmart because they were struggling, and they were largely bought for their real estate portfolio because they just had great real estate sites, and they wanted their customers and their business, but it was the real estate portfolio. They lost their game because they weren't focused on the competition, and they weren't leveraging analytics the way the competition was. Now, Coke is a different story. They're not in trouble. They're growing. They're being successful. They're using analytics in their R&D like nobody's business. Has anybody seen one of their freestyle machines? Yeah, pretty cool, huh? So you get to program all the different flavors you want, and if every customer's doing that, and that data is then ported to Coca-Cola R&D, how great is that for crowdsourcing new flavors, right? We're doing all their work for them, and scientists are just still at home looking at the data. And then there's Microsoft and Nokia, which partnered up this summer, or they just announced an acquisition, Microsoft buying the Nokia mobile phone business, to really get them both back into the catbird seat as it relates to mobile. Nokia and handsets and Microsoft and the OS and all the applications that go on it, they've kind of lost their way. Since as recently as, when was it? Oh, I don't have the date here, but anyone have a Razor phone back in the day? I mean, that was the phone, right? And it's just really nowhere in the sight anymore where Motorola plays in that market. So this is their attempt to get back into the market and then leverage the horsepower of both of these really analytical companies to make an impression. And then lastly, there's poor RIM and the BlackBerry. I mean, in 2008, the BlackBerry was the dominant leader in cell phone technology, right? And so, yeah, it's not all analytics and it's not all big data that made them lost their way, but truly losing touch with their consumer and that creative edge is a part, the information that you're getting into your organization and how you analyze that, which, clearly they didn't do as good a job on that as their competitors did. So we need big data, we need analytics to not only succeed and thrive, but to take our businesses in the direction where we want them to go and not become dinosaurs in as little as 3 or 5 years, right? Things are moving that quickly. So let's get back to data, I promise I do. Data is everywhere. So, I know this is gonna go forward on me, so maybe that'll happen. Let's do a little test here. Of this group, what kind of data do we have in this group, of this population of fabulous people here today? Shout it out, what data elements?
Claim data.
Claims?
Claim data. What we do in our work.
Oh, no, so that's, sorry, my mistake there. If I was looking at this demographic population of fabulous professionals in this room, how would I profile you as data elements? What are the
Gender.
Great fashion sense.
So you've got casual, formal, designer. Yeah. What else? Company affiliations. Geography. Education.
Haircut.
There we go. Why is it wherever you go, like the pens never work? Any business I go into, anywhere. Probably because I source office supplies, right? Demand. No, you cannot have that extra pen. So we've got all that. How many Apple phone users do we have in the room? It's about half, I'd say. How many Androids? Maybe 25%. I wish I could draw that little robot. How many BlackBerry rims? They're still around. What did I miss? What else? Smart. Is that a smart? Smart. Who's that?
Windows.
The
Windows.
Don't tell my client that I didn't think of that, okay? Okay, and then we'll say that's all the rest. Okay, so there's all sorts of different data elements that we can just take from this one small demographic here. And obviously the pieces of data that we're going to go after are determined by what we're trying to accomplish. But the real differentiator for big data, and I really think you hit the nail on the head, is number one, first, it's about velocity. Big data has to be fast, right? We don't have time to run a ton of different analyses that take days and weeks. It's gonna make me crazy. I'll just let that take days and weeks to get through. Rather, we need to get the data back quickly for our decision making. The second thing about big data is the variety of data that we've got with it. There you go, right on. It's structured data, which is our ERP, our MRP. Think of structured data as the stuff we get from the Oracle database that is in columns and rows, and it can be a relational database still, but it's something that is very structured in how it's put together. So we've got fast data, we've got structured data. Oh, and the other part about the variety is the unstructured part, right? And a lot of that comes from the social medias, the blogs, the Twitter sphere, and all that. And then the last thing is it's just flat out big. There is a lot of it. So when you have those three attributes, velocity, variety, and volume, you go from just being data to big data. Is that clear as mud for everybody? So let's look at some of the growth patterns of data over time. So first, we've got to get our vocabulary. You've got your gigabytes, 10 to the 9. You've got your terabytes, 10 to the 12. Who said that? Sonali. That's why I made sure she came. Thank you. Okay, but now we're going to test you. Petabytes, 10 to the 15. And zettabytes, 10 to the 21. Somebody say 20? It kind of goes every 3, right? Because it's exponential. But anyway, these are some of the growth patterns in the data. So when we talk about how big it's growing and what the forecast is for 2020, it's really just rocketing over time because we're creating data every day. And then I know the stored data is a pretty old data in terms of 2010, but it gives you back even in 2010 sort of the distribution of that data by region. And so the market is estimated to grow at 45% annually to reach that 25 billion by just 2015. So if any of us are in a position to actually buy big data, whether it's the infrastructure, the analytics, the services, we are one of many. Right? There's a lot of people out there. Now, the good news on if you're in the purchasing side of big data is there are a lot of providers out there too. So it's not one of those markets where you've only got a very small number of people who know how to do it and there's all these people chasing it. But the challenge is figuring out which applications, which solutions, which data sources are really going to meet your needs because it's growing so quickly, it's kind of hard to get our arms around it. So let's go a little bit deeper in terms of big data and advanced analytics. Because data alone, like I said earlier, isn't going to get you the answers that you need. Rather, it's the analytics we put on top of the big data. So if you take nothing else from this conversation except for the knowledge that I stalk Michael Lewis and big data, this is the one chart, and I'm happy to share these with Cheryl for distribution, but this is the one chart that you should take back with you to your organizations because I think it encapsulates the combination of big data and the analytic techniques you use to make heads or tails of the data. So we'll spend a couple seconds on this. The first analytic technique is one that we're probably all pretty familiar with. It's business intelligence. And this answers the questions, what happened? So anyone have a spend cube of data or a category of data or PL data or MRP data, sort of historical data, right? Business intelligence enables us to track it, to tap into that data, and then we manipulate it through analytical analysis to figure out what happened in the past. Useful, but not especially novel. So the next is modeling. Modeling tells us why it happened. So we can take that historical data and model it in different ways to figure out why this is happening. Where are the bottlenecks? where are things breaking down, how can I make changes going forward. Now, the fun stuff that's going to enable us to make changes going forward is the predictive analytics. How do I take history and make heads or tails of what's going to happen next? Because we all want to be those soothsayers, right? To be able to tell our business clients, well, based on everything you did before, this is the most likely outcome in terms of what's going to happen next. That's where we use predictive analytics. And it's certainly something that we aspire to do in our day jobs, and there's absolutely analytic tools that can help us do that more successfully. But that's what's in the future. Now, simulation, what could happen? And that's pretty intuitive, right? How do I simulate different outcomes based on the alternative variables that I have to give me some choices and to demonstrate what the different paths forward might be. And then lastly, on top of that simulation, I use some optimization to say, but what's the best outcome? And optimization is something that economists have been using forever. I got my undergrad degree in economics, and it was all about maximizing utility, right? I can't even believe I remember that. So many of them. Maximize, how do we optimize utility for the most amount of people? And so that's what your optimization tools are all about. Those tools enable us to take the data, take the big data, use our decision analytics to figure out what the data says. And then how successful would I be if I then took my big spreadsheet or my master database and I said to my business partner, hey, come here, let me show you my master database. Is that going to tell the story? Is that going to get them to drive change or take action? Do they really want to look at my 10 font point spreadsheet? I mean, that's going to kill them, right? So that's where we got the visualization tools. So the visualization tools really help us tell the story with the data. They help the data become more dynamic so that if, as you're sitting in a meeting with folks, and this is a great one that we use all the time, is called Tableau. Is anyone familiar with Tableau? It's a great tool, right? So you're sitting in a meeting with your stakeholders and they say, oh yeah, but we can't do that because of X, Y, Z. And then you can say, oh, well, how about this? And you take X, Y, Z out of the equation and then the charts all change and you show the different answer and then okay. And you can do that sitting right in front of them on your iPad. So it's really very effective tool for telling stories with the data. So our job is really in understanding and bringing these tools to bear for our organizations, not only so that they can make decisions, but really so that we in the supply management field can leverage that in our decision making, especially for some of those complex categories that we're managing on a day-to-day basis. Importantly though, let's get back to Brad. It's all about Brad, right? I like Jody Hill too though. Was this the first one? This was my misguided one, right? This one helps us understand not only how important the data is and drawing insights from the data, but you got to get the question right too. So let me make sure I get the right question here.
We're trying to solve a problem here, Tony.
Not like this, you're not even looking at the problem.
We're very aware of the problem. I mean,
Okay, good. What's the problem?
look, Billy, we all understand what the problem is. We have to
Okay,
replace...
good. What's the problem?
The problem is we have to replace 3 key players in our
No.
lineup.
What's the problem?
Same as it's ever been. We've got to replace these guys with what we have existing.
No. What's the problem, Barry?
We need 38 home runs, 120 RBIs, and 47 doubles to replace.
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap. And then there's us. It's an unfair game. And now we've been gutted, like organ donors for the rich. Boston's taking our kidneys, Yankees taking our heart, and you guys are sitting around talking the same old good body nonsense like we're selling jeans. Like we're looking for Fabio. We've got to think differently. We are the last dog at the bowl. You see what happens to the runt of the litter? He dies.
Billy, that's a very touching story and everything, but I think we're all very much aware of what we're facing here. You have a lot of experience and wisdom in this room. Now, you need to have a little bit of faith and let us do the job of replacing Giambi.
Is there another first baseman like Giambi?
No, not really.
No.
And if there was, could we afford him?
Nope.
Then what the fuck are you talking about? If we try to play like the Yankees in here, we will lose to the Yankees out there.
Well, that sounds like fortune cookie wisdom to me, Billy.
No, that's just logic.
Who's Fabio?
Okay, so now I bet if I went to Netflix on Monday morning and I asked them to tell me how many people watched Moneyball over the weekend, yes, they're all going to be there. It's a great movie, really a great movie. And you know, it's all for business research purposes. So that's good. So there's a little bit of analytics in that. Let's look at some examples though in the procurement field. Demand planning. Well, before I do that, can anyone relate to that last clip though in terms of sort of the old guard sitting around wanting to make decisions the way they've always made decisions and not wanting to open their eyes? We're all shaking our heads. Yeah. So breaking into this, breaking down those barriers takes what? It takes a new way of thinking, and hopefully big data, some analytics can help you in that. It takes a bit of profanity, right? In the right uses and context. You gotta shake these people up and really, really bring the business case that shows how things are going to be different. And it's hard. It's not easy to do because a lot of times we're making stuff up that hasn't been done before. When the Oakland A's did this, there were PhD documents about sabermetrics, about how this could be done in baseball, but people weren't doing it. Now everybody's doing it, right? This is the way baseball runs today. And to the extent other sports are able to develop that level of statistics, they're trying to find their way as well. So now the Harvard grad can go join a baseball team, whereas back in the day, you know, it was the old guard growing up the way they always did. So let's go into some examples here. Demand planning. This one's really cool. Anyone here from Kimberly-Clark? Well, Kimberly-Clark, the manufacturer of Kleenex, has a new app that is out already, and it's called My At You. And you put in your zip code, and it can tell you when the germs are coming to your zip code. I
gotta do this.
So they use the Centers for Disease Control data to populate this app, and then they ask you if anybody's been sick in your family as well, which not only helps inform their model, but helps in terms of getting data that the Center for Disease Control doesn't have yet, right? Because if all of us go in, put in our zip code, and say if somebody's sick in our house, they're adding to their database, right? Which is so great. It really goes beyond other cold and flu trackers. So Google Flu's been out there, and Cold FX apps have been out there for predicting where germs are going to strike. Or predicting, they tell you where germs are now. And the Google one's based on social sentiment in terms of, you know, I updated my Facebook with, oh, I feel like crap, or somebody else said something in Twitter about being ill. But this one actually starts to forecast it. So whenever I travel, I always go on to weather to figure out, you know, because I'm in California, so if I don't plan, I don't bring a coat because you don't need your coat, which is not true. That's a lie. San Francisco can be cold, but I like to make people jealous. But I go onto the weather and I look to see what clothes I need to bring wherever I'm traveling. And now you can go onto My At You and see your 7-day forecast for germs. How great is that? And I can say, well, I'm not going to Chicago because they have forecast for heavy germs. So, they also have these really great commercials on, I think it's on the web, I don't know if it's on TV, where people admit where they sneezed. And so this one lady standing in the elevator and she's like, I sneezed on my hand.
Oh, yeah?
And then I shook my boss's hand. Okay, so remember the elbow technique that I was teaching the kids in school, right? Okay, so, but from a demand planning purpose, this not only drives business for them, top line growth, right? Because wow, 7 days the germs are coming here, I'm gonna go stock up on Kleenex. But then it also helps drive and manage their supply chain, right? Because if their folks out in the supply chain know that this model is forecasting where the germs are gonna be, whether the germs are there or not, the people are going in or buying Kleenex, right? So there will be demand because they're gonna advance. So it's just this really great way to drive the data, the analytics from the disease into how our demand planning is going to go over time. And here's one about inventory management. So in this case, it was all about reverse logistics. So this was akin to Kleenex. This is the purveyor, the seller of Kleenex, your retail pharmacy store, right? And so what they had a problem was some stores had too much of some SKUs and other stores had too little of those same SKUs. And the old model for managing that conundrum would be, well, ship more SKUs to the store that's out of SKUs to make sure they have the product where the people want it when they want it. I'm waiting for this to change again. But you still have this oversupply of SKUs in the stores where it hasn't sold for whatever reason. So what they said is, well, gosh, the smart thing to do is move it from one place to the other. But the supply chain and the logistics weren't set up to do that, nor did they have the data to be able to do that. So when we went to help them originally on this problem, we set up that data models to figure it out, and you've got 195 million lines of data. And the initial models we set up, you simulate something, put it in, and then you wait for 18 hours for the model to tell you what the answer is. And I'm working with my data analysts, and they said, okay, so should we go to dinner? So we go to dinner, we come back, we go to bed, we come back. And then the next morning, I said, do you have it? And they say, oh, I made a mistake. And so now we have to do it again in 18 hours. You need a big data solution for that. You need that fast speed, because you're not going to get the right model right every single time, especially with this level of data. So in this case, once we got the model running correctly and everything was good, we could optimize the combinations from one store to the other, and then demonstrate how if you moved the product from here to there, you could save, in this case, how much was it? $98 million. Identified $98 million savings in 8 weeks. And it only took, I think it was 10 weeks to train the folks that needed to go out into the field and actually move the equipment. And yeah, it took 120 people to actually move the product from one store to the next. But for $98 million, you can move a little product, right? For that company. So here's a look at sort of a high level look. Obviously there's a lot more to know with this. The red line is their historical data, and that shows the time in terms of the traditional inventory, products, promotions, and the regional data they had for the different zip codes of the different stores. And then when we did the predictive analysis, it showed where the volumes were meant to be for that. And so by store, by SKU, we could rationalize. And then of course we had to do an optimization model that said, well, if I take Visine from here and Kleenex from there and this from there and that from there, I don't want to do one at a time with millions of different trucks going back and forth. So how do I optimize those shipments? So pretty complex stuff that you probably couldn't do in any reasonable amount of time without some of these big data tools. Now let's say you buy rail transportation and you're a big buyer of rail freight. So you've got trains carrying your freight all over the country, and demand is really growing. So by 2020, you expect your own personal freight to double in terms of the supply and demand forecast that you're going to need. You're buying new businesses, you're going crazy here. So how do you make sure you have sufficient capacity when you need it? Because the forecasts also tell you that other people's demand for rail freight is going to be growing too over the same time period. So what the rail carriers have done is put all sorts of sensors into their tracks, onto their trains, to give you minute-by-minute information, GPS data, where the trains are, where the congestion is, what they're carrying, where the bottlenecks have happened, and how the system is coming together. So if you can get that type of information from your rail carriers and figure that into your models, not only for how you're gonna move and how you're gonna negotiate your lanes, but also where you're gonna put your distribution centers. Maybe it's time to move my distribution centers because I'm anticipating some congestion coming down the path. How many of you, before you travel, look at the airline site and look at the flight you're on, or maybe before you even book it, and say what the frequency of that flight for being on time is? And that informs the decision of which flight you're going to take. And that's just historical information. So what if that data was informed by, well, I'm going from San Francisco to Chicago. Historically, here's the on-time arrival for that flight, but we know that Chicago's going to have a marathon, so there's going to be like all this craziness going on in town that day, and we know what the weather's going to be like, and that informed that, and then you could predict not only, you know, what your flight usually gets, but all these other factors. You probably wouldn't go because it'd be like you'll never get there. But same thing we want to do in the case of the rail is take all those factors, both the historical and the business factors provided by the rail companies, but also the future forecasts in terms of where density and growth and transportation are going. And we feed those into our planning and then also our negotiations with the rail companies, right? Oh, that's not good. Okay, so now the role of social media. We've all heard a ton about social media, right? And social media is great for informing the voice of the customer. But, you know, can Twitter help us get more intimate with our suppliers, get a barometer on what's going on with some of our far-flung suppliers? This one's for Foxconn, and I did this earlier this week, so it's really not 36 minutes ago, but you know, even still. So here, Foxconn assembles Japanese design team, that's all good. This next guy, Mohammed, I have no idea who Mohammed is, right? But he's talking about the suicide scandals. Now, Foxconn is the maker of all the Apple products, or a vast majority of the Apple products, as well as many other electronics. It's not just an Apple issue. And then you've got some news sources that feed through Twitter. Now, I'm not trying to say that Twitter should be your definitive research tool for supplier analysis and risk management. I'm not saying that. But oh my gosh, if you have strategic suppliers and you get Twitter feeds on what people are saying about those suppliers, at least it gives you a heads up to look, to ask the questions, to call your supplier and say, how's it going, right? Because without this source of data, you're stuck waiting for the next day's newspaper, right? So I'd rather know about it ahead of time versus after the fact. Okay, said we'd come back to RIM and BlackBerry, and I was a huge BlackBerry user too until I got my iPhone. But we work with Carnegie Mellon University. Actually, we work with a number of universities and do something called Student Lab, which is really great. We take our clients and we go to the campus, and then the students, and we collaborate on projects together. So this is one of the projects that we did, and this we actually had the students do for us because we wanted to just test a hypothesis that we had. And boy, can I tell you, these students at Carnegie Mellon are really, really smart. Pittsburgh in the house? Yeah, Pittsburgh's in the house. There you go. Really smart. They're not all from Pittsburgh. In fact, a lot of them are from overseas, but they're still really smart. Okay. So the objective here was to determine, if we could determine from social media what's out there on Twitter and Facebook and all those things that are jumping up over time, that point at which RIM started having product issues with their BlackBerry model. So this just reflects their stock price over time, and it's a very sad and well-known story. So now this chart shows the competition. It shows when other products were introduced on the market from Tour and Bold, and there's a playbook there, and you know where all those product introductions were. In fact, those might be BlackBerry products. Right? Yeah. So what we did then is not only say when their introduction of new products didn't help their growth at all, and then we also on a different chart with which I don't have here, plotted when the competitor products came online. But then we gave the students all this information from the data sources about the social media. And we had them do sentiment analysis on them, which is opinion mining. And so I'll give you the Wikipedia definition of sentiment analysis. It says, refers to the use of natural language processing, text analysis, and linguistics. So basically, taking words and data mining those words to figure out what's happening there. And you can see here, not so good, right? Their market share's going down. Crazy. But here's how what the sentiment analysis looked like. And I mean, we don't have to get our Microsoft scopes out to say that's kind of the same curve, right? So as the data came in, they talked about a frozen browser and typing sensitivity and multi-touch, more and more, and the circles represent the more of this sentiment coming through in terms of negative sentiment about the product. I'm not sure at which point we would have called it and said, this isn't working, right? Because if you're working at BlackBerry, you're hopefully optimistic and thinking we're gonna take this trend up. But you kind of know you're in trouble with that type of information. So another good use of that big data analytics. So now let's get on to the Amazon challenge. With the Amazon challenge, old guys making decisions, some old ladies too, this isn't a gender issue, old folks. People stuck in their paradigm, could be any generation, but people stuck in their paradigm and feeling like, I've always done it this way, I've got this gut, and I've got this intuition. And folks like Malcolm Gladwell will tell you that gut and intuition is good. You should rely upon that and not overanalyze and not go too far. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, like everything, right? But that's the old way of doing it. But I kind of want to hang out with Brad. I think, Brad's got Retail Analytics 2.0. So in this, who's the king of Retail Analytics 2.0? It's Amazon, right? So did you know that Halloween is the second biggest holiday in terms of money spent on decorations? And that is $8 billion. Crazy, huh? And it's Halloween holiday, if you will. We don't get it off yet. But is it a festival for children? It's for adults. It's totally for adults. So the problem that retailers have with getting ready for Halloween is it's very trendy type it's a very trendy type festival. I'll call it a holiday. It's a very trendy type thing in terms of people are very current, and retailers, traditional retailers, they need to lock their supply chains in months in advance to prepare for Halloween. So if you want to get your costumes, your decorations into the Walmart store, there's all sorts of planning for that. And that's a really not static, but it's a very fixed supply chain in terms of how the planning gets done. Well, Amazon's been able to turn that on its head. How many of you last year heard of the song Gangnam Style? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in your Halloween out adventures, how many people saw somebody dressing up like Psy? That main guy was singing that song, right? Well, that song was popular in like July of last year in the summer. There was no way that the retailers could gear up costumes for Psy. But Amazon could do that because they're able to partner with local suppliers, smaller suppliers, and present sort of on-demand needs. And they've got the data analytics that they're doing from the people buying the music, the people buying the videos, on what's going to be popular going forward. So they can present that information back to some of these vendors, as well as gear up a more flexible supply chain. Who's got guesses on what the most popular costume is going to be this year? Oh. It's already there. That's not, I will not be dropped, but you face it. So really important for Amazon is their use of data analytics. And I was also going to show you here my personal Amazon page, which is actually not mine, it's my husband's, because he's a Prime, a free shipping and all that stuff. And I went in to catch a screenshot because what I wanted to show you is all the information, and you've seen it, right? The suggestions that you get. But I couldn't get in. And so I emailed him last night, I'm like, what's the Amazon password? And he's like, why would I tell you that over email? Like, somebody could get that, you know, credit cards all linked up and everything. I said, well, you can call me and tell me. And he said, well, I just bought your birthday present. And it's just shipped, Liz. I have no, and unlike the lady yesterday, did I tell him what I wanted? Yeah, I told him what I wanted. But it's not from Amazon. I have a charm bracelet. My mother-in-law always gives me different charms. And I've got 5 charms that aren't on the bracelet yet. And I'm like, just get the damn charms on the bracelet. That's a great present, right? Nothing new, just go to the store. Okay, but anyway. So I don't have the Amazon. But has anyone seen the Netflix users out there? Okay. Isn't it great what they've done about who's watching now? Because I don't know about you, but my husband has a Netflix account. He's got all this stuff. And I don't watch documentaries, and I don't watch zombie films, but surprisingly, everything on Netflix that's recommended to me is a documentary or a zombie film. Or, you know, how to save yourself from a zombie. So, it just doesn't work for me. So now I can go in, and every time I watch something, say, you know, this is a Brad movie, and I'll get information about future Brad movies, and it'll all be good. So that's the power of analytics. It's just amazing. Okay, so, pardon?
And Michael Lewis movies.
Oh, and Michael Lewis movies, for sure. Okay, so I'm at the point where I'm going to sum up and we'll have some open conversation, I hope, and I don't represent to have all the answers, so I encourage you all to pipe in with your ideas there as well. But a couple of key takeaways that I think is really important is big data. It's all about velocity, gotta be fast, that cheetah. Variety, structured and unstructured, bringing that together. And there's just a lot of it. So for us to be successful, we've got to set up the right infrastructure to make that work within our organizations. And there's a lot of ways we can go about doing that. We can build it ourselves, we can go to the cloud, or we can outsource it to a third-party provider, right? And so the strategy that your organization is going to take on that really is based on how important it's going to be to your success going forward. But what we are working with a lot of our clients to do is, at least as you're piloting, as you're dabbling, to do that in the cloud or more of a third-party solution provider format until you figure out what's going to work for you. And then do the analysis to make sure, you know, what and how to bring it in-house, because it's changing so quickly. We can leverage big data and analytics